everyone, and welcome to Snook Family Studios and our newest segment called The Debate, where we interview local politicians and those asking for our votes in upcoming elections to gain a better understanding to where they stand, what policies they'll put into action, and how they will look out for voters while in these public servant roles. My name is Michael Snook. I am a single father of 4, VTuber, YouTuber, streamer on Twitch, X, and Kick. Today with us we have Scott Bright, Republican candidate for District 13, which encompasses areas of Greeley, Evans, Garden City, Platteville, Gilchrist, Fort Lufton, and Brighton, along with the US 85 corridor. I have prepared some questions that we are going to discuss today. These questions were provided to Scott in advance with the agreement that if I thought of some corresponding questions on the spot, he would be willing to answer them. Before we begin, I'd like to invite any and all political candidates to reach out to me on Instagram or X to schedule a similar style interview. My profile links can be found in the comments as agreed upon by Scott Bright and I. This interview will be published uncut, so let's begin.
There we go.
Welcome, Scott.
Welcome.
Nice to see you in person finally.
Awesome.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yes, Scott Bright, lifelong resident of Weld County, conservative my entire life. Happily married to my lovely bride of 29 years, kids 24 and 20.
Wow. That's an achievement.
It's awesome. Additionally, so for what it's worth, I've been a resident of Weld County and have lived within Senate District 13 boundaries as they're drawn right now for my entire life. So
wow,
I've been here
awesome.
the whole time.
Well, so you definitely should be up on all the issues that would affect you and the group that you're trying to represent.
Yes.
Awesome. So I was doing some looking up on you, and I found out that you own a chain of early child care centers. How has some of the free preschool and other regulations put into place recently and in the previous terms affected your business and your employees?
Definitely has had an effect. More so for our families than for us as a business. Free preschool is a concept that has been around for a long time, but as it has been developed under the new universal preschool program, it has essentially offered a tuition credit for those families who already are obtaining free preschool from any of our centers.
Okay. Well, that's cool. At least it gives a kid a little extra step up in the college run once they get that direction.
Exactly. I mean, preschool is great. Studies show that children achieve so much more if they have that step before they head into school. So we're happy to provide that step for families.
Awesome. So as I was doing some more looking up, I found this website, termlimits.com. On the website, you're quoted as supporting the USTL for term limits on Congress by signing the Term Limits Convention pledge. Your opposing candidate from District 13 seat, Matt Johnston, has also signed this bipartisan pledge. What does signing this pledge mean to you, and why do you think it's necessary to put into place term limits for Congress?
Yeah, great question. I believe that we should not encourage career politicians. I feel like there needs to be a fresh perspective brought in. I don't feel like that there's a whole lot of good that comes out of someone who's been in that position for too long. So obviously the voters of Colorado have a lot of common sense and have asked for term limits from our state legislators. And so I would love to see that also play forward to our US legislators.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think that term limits, without term limits, you basically encourage people to take advantage of the system because the longer they're there, not only do they learn the ins and outs of it, but then they learn how to deceive it, how to bypass it, and how to basically uproot it. So in an interview posted online at coloradopolitics.com, you were quoted as saying, "The American dream is under assault by Colorado Democrats' agenda of higher taxes, job filing regulations, hostility toward education innovation, and criminal coddling politics. With conservative leadership and ideas, Colorado's best days still lie ahead." Can you explain further some of the items you're referring to in the interview, as well as how you would resolve the worst offenders?
Exactly. Well, I do believe that Colorado is made up of common sense voters. I take pride in our state and the voters in our state. I feel like they know right from wrong. They have common sense. And when we continue to reward criminals by incentivizing their behavior, by not penalizing the things that they do that aren't good for communities, we're just going to get more of the same. When we over collect from our citizens on state taxes and then wish to remove the protection for the taxpayers of Tabor, it just doesn't make sense. I feel like anyone with common sense in Colorado understands that, and so proposing to continue to remove Tabor and increase taxes is not congruent with the fact that we're over collecting on taxes right now. So I just wonder why our friends across the aisle are so intent on collecting more when we're already collecting too much.
Well, and I agree with that, because I mean, in the most recent election, we voted as voters to not give them the right to take Tabor from us, and then immediately Governor Polis and the Democrats decided they were going to try, and not try, but they did push through a new initiative to take Tabor from us anyway, so they can make housing cheaper. Now, I understand housing. I mean, being a single father of 4 and working 2 jobs, you know, going out looking at the housing market, it's insane unless you live way out in the country where you get a decent sized land and maybe an okay house for a reasonable price. But they're trying to make it so cheap for everybody, but the only thing is they're focusing on Denver. They're focusing on the areas that are way higher than they should be, like Denver rent. I have a guy, buddy I work with. He owns an apartment down there, you know, bought and paid for. But he says some of the people he lives around that don't own theirs and they rent, their rent is $24,000, $25,000, $3,000 a month, and that's just for the courtesy of living downtown, where they have all the homeless encampments, they have all the drugs, and I mean, I hate to say it, but Denver's almost starting to look like San Francisco.
It is, and I believe that that's because of the liberal agenda. I mean, that's what they incentivize, and so that's what comes along. So comes along with that. I could say that again. I think fentanyl is a killer in this state, and reducing the penalty for having fentanyl, which is something that's been done by our Democrat friends, is something that has incentivized the use of it and has also caused deaths that just didn't need to be that way. And so I had a chance to visit with Will County Sheriff Reams a couple weeks ago about this, and they just can't do anything about it. Law enforcement cannot do anything real about stemming the flow of fentanyl into our state and the effects that it has on people. And so it's a relatively cheap drug, $5 for a pill of fentanyl and $50 for a shot of Narcan. So we'd rather treat it with a solution that's 10 times as expensive when we could just enact laws that prohibit it in the first place and stem the flow of fentanyl into our state.
And going along with that, I work a bunch of part-time and gig jobs, and one of the gig jobs I worked was New Year's Eve at the convention center downtown, the one with the big blue bear. And I ended up working security for the VIP section. And it was shocking to me how many people that were going into this New Year's Eve rave had fentanyl. I'm sorry, not fentanyl, but had Narcan on them, had multiple. If I had to count, I saw at least 100 cans of Narcan go in to the concert. And it's not just those that are, you know, parents that worry about the drugs, it's everybody. I mean, when you are at a New Year's Eve event and one of the main things you're seeing in people's bags when the alarm goes off is a can of Narcan, that tells you that everybody's worried about it. This isn't a solo or one-sided issue. This is a bipartisan issue from every Coloradan. And I don't understand why the governor seems to think that we can't do something to better it by doing stuff that's going to prevent it rather than encourage the behavior. And that, as a voter myself, that's so frustrating.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree.
So while looking into your background, it's my understanding that you were and correct me if I'm wrong, because I do have former on some of these and they may still be current,
Right.
that you were a former president of the Greeley Downtown Rotary, president of the Colorado Trails Preservation Alliance, president of the Early Childhood Education Association of Colorado, and former chair and executive director of the Colorado Early Education Network. Were all those correct?
Yes, those
Okay.
are all correct.
Awesome. How did serving in those positions prepare you to be a public servant in the capacity that you're looking to do for District 13?
Yeah, great question. So being chair of the board of the Early Childhood Education Association of Colorado has given me the opportunity to advocate on behalf of child care providers, both family child care homes, child care centers around the state of Colorado, looking at policies that would affect them both positively and negatively, trying to reduce the amount of negative impacts that it has on child care and preschool opportunities for families around the state, and then increase the benefits for those families that need that opportunity for care so that they can go to work every day. We are constantly seeing proposed rules, regulations that incentivize people to not work and pay them to not work. And it frustrates me that we're way past the tipping point there. I have quite a few staff right now who, under the new family medical leave policy of Colorado, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but I'm saying that I'm having to look at closing classrooms that have up to 15 kids in them because I have a staff person that's out on family medical leave. While I care about my staff person and the needs that they have, it's now going to cause 15 sets of parents to not have child care while we wait for the situation to resolve. So I'm really intent on incentivizing the best platform with which to provide benefits to families and yet not tax the entire system and all of our citizens to an extent that they never wanted to go to. So it's frustrating, but it's rewarding when we can make some of those progresses and mark some of those achievements.
I agree with that. I mean, a lot of people, depending upon whether they have kids or don't have kids, their biggest argument is, why am I paying taxes for something that I don't utilize? And I think that's a really big thing of, if as a society of people that cohabit shared spaces, we should focus on what does best for our communities. Encouraging people to go to work, yes, leaving your kids every day to go to work, it sucks. My wonderful 2 younger girls, I love them to death because they will wake up at 5:30 in the morning for me just to give me a hug and kiss before I walk out the door. That's how much they know that my hard work pays off for them, and I'm trying to take care of them. At the same time, they're willing to put in the effort to make sure and meet me where they can.
Yes. And
I think that politicians need to do the same thing for the working group. They need to meet us where they can, because if a representative, someone that I voted for that represents me, isn't willing to bat for what I voted for, I'm going to vote him out the next time. And I feel that a lot of people don't do that. They, I didn't really like that policy, but he has a D after his name. Or, I didn't really like that policy, but he has an R after his name. That shouldn't be how we vote. We should be voting for our best interest and the person that's going to do the best for us as a group.
Yep, I would agree.
So, the seats you're running, and leading into that,
yes.
Speaking about voting for those that we think is going to do the best for us, the seat you're running for is currently held by the term-limited former Republican Kevin Priola, who in recent years had voters try to recall him due to his switching parties to the Democrat side after the Colorado Republican Party refused to distance themselves from former President Donald Trump. Where do you stand when it comes to the upcoming presidential election, and do you support the current front-runner of the Republican Party, former President Donald Trump?
Great question. First off, I can tell you what I don't support.
Okay.
I don't support another 4 years of what we've just gone through.
Amen to that.
This is one of the darkest times that I can remember. and it's been really tough on America to not have leadership that looks out for the best interest of all citizens. I'm really frustrated by that. I'm frustrated by the direction that this country has gone. I'm frustrated by the overtaxation, the underrepresentation. I'm frustrated by the lack of common sense with policy making. And so I would have to say that I am very much in favor of whatever alternative removes the current track that we're on. So I will support the individual that is from a conservative base that has the best chance of removing what we have now.
Okay, fair. Personally, I think that the 4 years before Biden were some of the best 4 years of our country. We have never in our history had a president go into North Korea. And Trump not only did that, but Trump showed Korea that he does not fear them. He showed China that he does not fear them. Biden, if he ever gets out of his basement, shows everybody how incompetent he is, how it doesn't take an army to take him down, a sandbag can do it. And that's so sad that we're represented by somebody that doesn't stand from a standpoint of strength, he stands from a standpoint of weakness. And weak leaders are what will bring our country down. And that's one of the reasons why I personally support what Donald Trump did 4 years ago, and why, if that is his main focus moving forward to get us back to that same level and make us even better, that's why I'll support him moving forward personally.
And if Donald Trump is the best option for us to beat out the Democrats on a national scale, hey, where do I check that box?
Completely agree with that. So there was another article I found stating that you wouldn't sign a pledge released earlier last year by the Colorado Libertarian Party to prevent the third-party spoiler candidates due to feeling like it was a strong-arm tactic. Even though you agreed with all 19 points that were articulated in the pledge. Hannah Goodman, the state's Libertarian chair, has said that they will be fielding Libertarian nominees to run against Republican candidates that don't sign the pledge. Do you feel that if a third-party candidate were to get into the race, would it hurt or steer voters away from you in the final tally?
Absolutely. I mean, it's just a math game. Any third party that decides to field a candidate will take votes from the side that they represent. Whether it be a Bernie Sanders sort of candidate that takes votes from the left, or whether it be a Ross Perot that takes votes from the right, those things happen. But what it does is it has the unintended effect of having us choose to be governed by the viewpoints of the people that we oppose. And so what the Democrats are really good at doing is circling the wagons about 2 months before the election and saying, okay, well, if we can't have the guy that we want, then we're going to go ahead and vote for this guy because we for sure don't want to be ruled by the other party. And I feel like there's some lessons to be learned there. If we don't want to be ruled by the Democrats to the point of a supermajority in the state of Colorado, we need to, 2 months before the election, circle the wagons around the best chance to beat the opposition. And so I would appeal to the Libertarian Party and those folks all around the conservative side of the aisle that if we want to not be ruled by the Democrats, we need to come together under the big tent of whoever is the most likely to beat them. So
regarding that as well, the term strong arm tactic, I think I understand why you said that, but correct me if I'm wrong. Having someone sign a pledge to do or not do or support or not support something, it kind of paints you into a box. And based upon how what is in that box is used, what you support by putting you in that box is used, you may end up not supporting how it's used. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct. I mean, so let's say that I signed a pledge of 19 things, and let's say that one of those things wasn't parallel to a conservative movement down the road. I can't in good conscience do that, and all of a sudden I'm going to get assaulted by that box of folks that expect that all 19 of those points to be held. You have to operate from your principles. At the same time, you have to operate in defense of the things that you don't want to be governed by. And so it has become very clear that the fracturing or the splintering of some of the big parties, both on the Democrat side and the Republican side, have caused us to be ruled or governed by our enemies.
Okay. I agree with that. I mean, politics is an ebb and flow based upon what best supports the people of the country. And so one year this idea, this legislature may work good for the country, but years later it may not work because it's outdated, it's not working in the best because of the circumstances or whatever. And I feel that personally, when you paint someone in a box, now you're forcing them to do stuff that, even especially in situations like that where it's not good for the country, now you're forcing them to support an idea that's not good for the country. And if they don't support it, all of their enemies are going to point it out. Hey, he used to support this, now he doesn't support this. Now he's a flip-flopper, he's a fish flopping in the wind. And that's garbage. I mean, you can't sit there and hold someone to an ideal, because ideals are exactly that. They're idealistic. They're not realistic. Whereas when you have ideas that are based upon the current situation, it evens out the ebb and flow of politics, because we're not just working, okay, what's the right voting for? What's the left voting for? What's the center voting for? What are the moderates voting for? No, now we're going to say, okay, what works best for this community? Mm-hmm. I mean, California, for example, thought that, okay, illegal drug use is such a big thing, let's make legal drug use spaces. And now they have found out that was a failed policy. But there were a lot of Democrats that supported that failed policy, and now it's not a good thing. And now what are they doing? They're coming out against it. Same thing with the, I think it was the New York mayor or governor, I can't remember the gentleman's name. He's like, hey, we're an open city. We don't care about borders. Bring all the illegal immigrants here. Bring all the illegal migrants here. We'll support them. Now he's trying to ship them out because he realized that was a failed policy. Yeah. And now the biggest city in our nation, the most renowned city, the city that this country started from, New York City, mm-hmm. is in turmoil because of a policy that he agreed to sign on to support, and then now he has to go against what he agreed to support to save his city. Mm-hmm. And that's why I agree with you when it comes to strong arm tactics. You don't want to paint someone in a box, because you end up having to fix a problem later rather than supporting the correct or better idea now.
Sure. And to follow up on that point, I would also add that it seems like we find Democrats don't ever ask the question, then what? They want to implement the first Band-Aid policy that's got the nice bow tie, frosting on it, whatever, but then they don't ask, then what? What happens then? What happens next? What happens after that? And if the common sense folks of Colorado start asking those questions, which I think they are, you'll find that it takes the wind out of the initiatives that the Democrats are pushing on us.
Yeah, speaking of the unintended consequences, sure. I saw a video the other day online, and it's a gentleman I follow. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but he was talking about an example he gave to a 5th grade room. He said, all right, this half, you're going to be group 1, this half you're going to be group 2. You're going to be the House, you're going to be the Senate. You're going to agree upon how long you want the school day to be. And they talked about it. These guys wanted 2, these guys wanted 4. And he's like, oh, you got to meet in the middle somewhere. Okay, 3.5. Okay, you've handed that off to the governor of the state you live in. He signed it, it's now in law. Now you've lost your summer vacation. They're like, wait, what?
Right.
Yeah, you've lost your summer vacation because your state has a certain minimum requirement for how many days you need to be in school and how many hours you have to be in school. So because you lessened the school day to 3.5 hours, now you no longer have a summer vacation. You're now going to school year round, and you might not even have Christmas break except for a couple days because of what you put into place. And they're like, well, that's not what we voted for. Mm-hmm. Well, you're right. That's not what you voted for, but that's the unintended consequences. Yeah. And I don't think, and I think this is on both sides, but I think it's more on the left. I will agree. The Democrats they want to put it into place because it looks like a fad, mm-hmm. because it looks like something, oh, it's going to get me votes. Oh, let me put that into place. And then later, oh my gosh, let me get into votes. Let me get the votes measure. is failing because I didn't look past the dotted line. I didn't look past the signature line. And as voters, I really think we need to do that. I think we need to look forward and think, okay, if we do A and B happens, what is going to be C, the unintended consequences? And that is the biggest issue I feel that voters don't look at as well. I mean, because I would say that the voters that vote against something, they're looking at the bigger picture. When I started in management at the different jobs I had, you had to understand the bigger picture. You couldn't just look at, okay, how many candy bars did I sell this week at this truck stop? I needed to look at how much fuel did I sell, how many electronics did I sell, how much did I pay out in wages to understand whether or not you're profitable. And I think that same aspect needs to apply to politics, where you don't just look at, here's what it's going to do and get tunnel vision. Okay, if this is the wave it's going to make, what's at the end of the wave that it's going to hit and affect and cause unintended consequences to?
I agree. It's the question of then what?
Exactly. Then what? What if? And then, you know, a lot of people won't remember that line from another movie, but moving forward, Madeline Zan, the executive director of the Colorado State Democrats campaign arm and the Democrat Senate Campaign Fund, has said Senate District 13 remains a competitive seat, and after the debacle of the Priola recall that wasn't, I'm not surprised to see Republicans targeting the seat. However, Colorado voters have proven time and time again that the Colorado GOP is too extreme, and I feel confident that Democrats will be able to hold this seat. I want to just make a note on there. The Kevin Priola recall that wasn't, when they did try to recall Kevin Priola because he switched parties and wanted to distance himself from the Republican Party, the Republicans attempted to have him recalled, but because of, at the time, which was not the same group that voted him in, it was the group that voted him in as a Republican, but at the time when they went to do the recall, the people that wanted him out was a different group because they'd redrawn the district lines. So that's why the recall did not take place. Not because they didn't have enough numbers. It was because the lines had changed and they wanted the people from the original lines to be the ones that recalled him, not the ones that were currently under his district at the time that they tried to recall him. But, which I think is insane, but whatever. But where do you feel she's wrong when it comes to her comments on how extreme the Republican Party is, and whether or not the voters, as you said, will not worry about how extreme somebody is, but use common sense?
Yeah, great question. I laughed when I saw this, and I got to say that I don't think anybody with common sense is remembering the recall that failed. I think what they're looking at, anyone with common sense, is, oh my gosh, we're being represented by someone of a party that we did not vote for in a majority. And so that's what's on people's minds right now. And I would have to say that anybody who would make a statement that Senate District 13, as the boundaries are drawn right now, leans Democrat or is going to naturally fall Democrat, hasn't spent any time in Weld County. So that is not who exists in Weld County and Adams County, and I'm anxious to prove it wrong.
And I would agree, because if you remember a few years back, there was a portion of, quite not a portion, but the entire Weld County majority of voters wanted to secede from Colorado and give Wyoming its own little Oklahoma panhandle style thing here in the middle of Colorado because of what Kevin Priola and the Democrats have done here in Colorado. And I think that's, I think it's insane that she has the gall to say something like that.
Well, it's just uninformed. Well, that's all it is. It's uninformed.
I really wouldn't say it's uninformed. I would say it's more lack of caring to be informed, because the Democrats always feel that they have a standpoint from, oh, well, we're correct because we represent the people, because the majority are this, the majority are that, instead of, like you said, representing the common sense folk that are going to go out. They're going to be the ones to vote. They're going to be the ones to get their ballot in the mail, and they're so excited and so headstrong to vote. They're going to be the first ones to the box.
I would agree.
And I don't feel that the Democrats realize that. They just go out, they spout, the same old stuff and try to get it to where it's a common phrase, like hope and change was a common phrase, but it means nothing.
Right.
Speaking of other political races, in most political races, there's usually a lot of mudslinging, name calling, sometimes downright nastiness.
Sure.
Especially right now, we've seen a lot of that. And there's usually in those times, there's a lot less facts presented to voters, as well as the current political environment is sometimes very unstable and contentious. How do you feel that you're going to handle that type of environment?
Great question. I can tell you that if a candidate doesn't have enough merit, enough positive points to support their own position, they've run out of good things to talk about themselves and the direction that they're going, and they have to now flip the page over and work on all the bad things of their opponent. That says something pretty sad about why we should be voting for them. So I pledge to not have any part of my campaign speak disparagingly about my opponent. I understand that there are pieces and parts of politics and campaigning that I don't have control over, that candidates don't have control over, and that who knows what comes out of those pieces. I don't have control over that, and so I cannot speak for that part. I would encourage those folks to shy away from mudslinging, as you say, and I can pledge that I will keep it above board because I have plenty of positive things to talk about myself and why I'm running.
Okay. Well, speaking about those positive things,
yes.
what's going to be the main focus of your campaign? What is, if we had to ask you one thing that you're laser focused on, what is going to be that one thing, and what is it that you want the people to know about your campaign that is your main focus?
Yeah. Protecting the tax-paying citizens of Colorado. The people that I know that I meet every day are hard-working Colorado citizens, and they constantly are having more and more regulations and taxes piled upon them. And it's not necessarily what they want. Essentially, the concept of being taxed means that I'm going to pay a tax, and yet the government is going to provide me this benefit on the other side. And I see that needs to be kept in check. And those folks that put the rule in place back in the 80s to protect us from our own government had a whole lot of wisdom. And every day I see more and more of that wisdom as we march through all the issues we're dealing with on a state level. Take this into account. Our governor, our liberal Democrat governor, has vetoed some of the legislation that's come out of the Democrat supermajority House and the majority Senate. How far liberal does that legislation have to be for our own liberal Democrat governor to veto it, right? And we're one seat away from the Democrats having a veto-proof supermajority in both the House and the Senate. And so if then the legislature can undo the veto of the governor, where are we headed as a state?
I mean, I'm scared to death that we're heading straight to follow in the footsteps of California. And for the youth that are in Colorado right now, that scares me as a parent.
Yeah.
I have kids ranging from 10 all the way to 18, and it's honestly scary with what's going on. And I hope to God it doesn't happen. I really do.
Me too.
If you had to take your current life from childhood to present day and highlight one of your greatest successes and one of your greatest failures, what would they be, and what was the reason you failed, and what would you have done differently?
Yeah, great question. Being married to my wife for 29 years, we'll celebrate our 30th this year. That is not without God's help and God putting us together. And had I not followed God's leading in my life, who knows where I would be. And so I would have to mark that as one of the greatest successes that I've had in my life, is having a family and being able to follow a spiritual lead that I have and keep that together and keep that moving forward in a positive direction. If you ask any room of individuals, has anyone lived their entire life without even one failure, without even one thing that they've messed up that they regret? You would have a hard time coming up with anybody that would raise their hand on that. So I believe that we all have failed. We all have struggled, whether it be financially, relationship, with whatever it is that we struggle with. And those struggles make us stronger. We learn way more from our faults than we do from our successes. And if I, as an employer of 250 employees, if I were to have an interview with two people exactly equally skilled, equally educated, etc., one had never failed in their entire life and one had had failures that had stung them and that they had learned from because of those failures, I would have to choose the one that experienced failure over the one that had never failed, because I feel like that failure emboldens them to make the better choices down the road. So those are the things that I learned from it.
Okay. We all get stressed. I know I get stressed. My kids see me get stressed sometimes. I know you get stressed. Everybody gets stressed. It's just a common aspect of life. And the way we handle stress is a shining of our character to show what type of person we are. Because if some people get stressed, they lose their minds and yell and scream and sometimes don't do it in the best way. And others, when they get stressed, they go to the gym and pound weights, go ride horses, go hunting, go to a shooting range and test their aim on a gun. And I wanted to know, what is your favorite stress relieving activity?
Wow, there's so many to choose from. I mean, why do we live in this great state of Colorado? I think we all live here because we live right next to those mountains right there, and the incredible outdoors that we get to go see. So I really enjoy riding my motorcycle, really enjoy hiking, really enjoy riding my snowmobile, really enjoy doing all of those things outdoors in Colorado that living here gives us the opportunity to do. So every day when I go, have that opportunity to go experience nature, experience this incredible earth that God has given it to us to enjoy, I come back refreshed and reset and ready to go. So I can stem the stress with things like that.
I was doing some more research on you, and I know this question wasn't one of the ones I had sent you, but I noticed you do a lot of motocross stuff.
Sure.
And it really surprised me, because I looked at your poster and everything when I was setting up the interview and whatnot. And what is that like to go across a desert on a motorcycle? Yeah. What is that experience like?
Yeah, so been blessed again to be able to compete at a national, a local, and an international level on motorcycles. And it's incredible. It's an incredible experience. I can tell you that riding a motorcycle or any sort of device that has that much speed requires your full attention. You can't think about other things while you're so focused on trying to keep it on two wheels and dodge the obstacles and things like that around you. So I can tell you there's something that happens to your mind, that purifies your mind, when you can move everything else out and just focus on what you're doing. So those sorts of things that completely engage you are really what stir me up and make me go. So I did race the Dakar Rally in South America in 2016. Blessed to have the opportunity to do that. Would never go back and do it again, just because living that close to the line of death for 18 days in a row is a little bit much for me, but it was a really cool experience. I'm happy to do it, happy to finish it, and happy to say that I've done it and then never have to do it again. So
you finally reached your level of extreme at this point in your life.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think I'm old enough now to know better than to risk my life on things like that. Yeah. So.
Alrighty. So, Scott, it's been a pleasure having you with us today. As we close the segment, I'd like to give you an opportunity to make some closing remarks to the voters that will see this video, and whatever you feel that you want to let them know that we haven't already discussed about you that might steer them in your direction. And the floor is yours, sir.
Right on. Well, thank you. I'm super glad for the opportunity to be here again. I really feel like there is a predominant lack of common sense in our legislature right now. I feel like the folks that are down there, I'm horrified by the fact that every legislator is allowed to come to the floor with their own 5 bills, and you're not a good legislator by their measurement if you don't have 5 bills. And so what does that incentivize? It incentivizes probably a whole bunch of stuff that we don't need. If there was a scale on there that said it's got to be a good piece of legislation, it's got to be worthwhile to the majority of the citizens. I mean, I feel like that's why we're there as a group of 100 people to discuss those things. But at the same time, what if there was a rule that said for every new law we bring in, we have to choose a law that exists to get rid of, right? So every year, the legislature within those rules comes up with more ways for the citizens of Colorado to be governed and regulated. And I don't feel like that's healthy. I really feel like we need to come up with a better system of self-governing that doesn't involve incentivizing more rules and more government.
Well said. I will say that I feel as a voter that one of the reasons why we have so much freedom is because we have choice. Mm-hmm. But it's the responsibility of the voter to make the right choice, not only for them, but for the next generation, so they can make sure that the next generation isn't drowning in a pool of overregulation.
Sure.
So, thank you guys for watching this interview today, guys. Sorry for the length, but I wanted to make this an uncut and unlimited time segment because I feel that today in politics that everything is too time kept. They hold them to too much time, and people worry about what they say and how long it takes them to say it. So they have to hit the zingers, and they have to hit the one-liners, and they have to hit the things that think is going to get them the most attention instead of saying what truly needs to be said in a way it needs to be said. So thank you guys so much for watching the interview. This is the debate on the Snook Family Studios YouTube channel. If there are any candidates out there, again, I invite you to contact me. My X and Instagram names will be in the comments and the description below. Also, I want to thank Harvest Church of Brighton for hosting us today. They gave us a little space in their building to host this interview, and if you did hear some sounds in the background, they are preparing for a service that they're providing for some of our local members of our community. But I did want to make sure and say thank you to them for hosting this interview, and thank you guys for watching. Have a blessed day. Take it away, Cosmo.